Donald Trump and Republican leaders just shut down the government and are actively trying to make healthcare unaffordable for millions of American families. Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Congressman Jared Huffman just held a press conference breaking down exactly what this shutdown means and why the GOP's priorities are clear. Billionaires first, working families last.
And that's something that I think calls all of us to just think about, who do we serve? What do we care about? Republicans have sort of answered that question with their big, ugly bill that makes unprecedented cuts to our healthcare safety net in order to fund trillions of dollars in tax giveaways to people who don't need it, to the billionaires, to the biggest corporations. We're taking a stand today to say enough. We are not going to continue to allow this. This is not normal. And folks, make no mistake, what's going on right now with the president's antics, which with his totally political manipulation of this government shutdown, is an attempt by a strongman dictator masquerading as a president to bully all of us into submission. Those of you on the other side of those cameras and microphones and notepads, he's trying to bully the free press into submission. He's trying to bully all of the institutions that are the connective tissue of democracy into submission. And we have never in the history of this country, I think, seen anything quite as cruel and heartless and disturbing and un-American as what we are seeing in this moment. So Democrats are taking a stand. It is about health care for millions of Americans, but it's also about the bigger moment of saying that we will not continue to normalize and greenlight this deeply destructive, un-American thing that is happening in our name.
Pelosi didn't hold back when it came to the Republican proposals this year. She made it crystal clear. Democrats could not and would not vote for a bill that cuts trillions from essential programs like Medicaid and SNAP, programs that millions of Americans rely on to feed their families and stay healthy.
Could not vote for a bill that contained within it and the other legislation they passed this year, cutting $1 trillion out of Medicaid and SNAP. $1 trillion. Several $100 billion out of SNAP, feeding the children. A few days ago, earlier this week, we celebrated the 48th anniversary of SNAP when signed by President Carter. Feed the children, with women, infant and children, seniors, Meals on Wheels and the rest. They would rather take food out of the mouths of babies so they can give a tax cut to the richest people in our country who really don't need it. And then on top of that, $600 billion out of Medicare, and a complete horror show when it comes to the Affordable Care Act. Now, I feel proprietary about the Affordable Care Act and what it has meant to millions of people now with their legislation, which they wanted us to vote for, Get out of here. Would double premiums for many, many people in our country, and again, that's practically unaffordable for most of them. So that's what the fight is about. Who are you here for? America's working family, or are you here for the richest people in our country? Clearly, the Democrats are on the side of America's working families, and the Republicans are there for the richest people in our country, at the expense of Medicare, Medicaid, even Social Security. They have said, we haven't touched the benefits, but they're firing the staff. This is one of the biggest, in the spring when they were doing this, this was one of the most objected to provisions of what they were doing, to take away the staff from Social Security, to put obstacles to people getting their benefits.
And then, a reporter raised one of the most alarming and very real consequences of this shutdown, the looming threat of widespread federal employee firings, putting thousands of hardworking Americans' jobs and livelihoods on the line.
Is that there's going to be widespread firings of federal employees if there isn't a deal soon. Any concern about that?
Yeah, there's very serious concern about that, and thank you for that question. Because the fact is, they're firing these people with or without a shutdown. Our members know that. They were fired without it, and now they're using the shutdown as an excuse. I wish I had the chairman of the Office of Management Budget Statement. Public employees are villains. They're going to suffer. There's going to be trauma. There's going to be trauma for them. They do not believe in governance. I appreciate your question because it enables me to say what we know and we will see is they're firing these people anyway. Now they want to blame it on the shutdown, but it's happening anyway. As I said in March, when we're having this fight then, they were already firing the people at Social Security who do not believe in governance. Let me just say, when you're asking about why, with all respect to your question, when members, people come to us and say they want to run for office, I always say to them, why? Know your why, right? We hear this all the time. Know why, because this is a big sacrifice to your family and this or that. Know your why. My why is 1 in 5 children in America lives in poverty and goes to sleep hungry at night. So my judgment about anybody I'm interacting with, whatever level of government is this, are you hurting the children? And this President of the United States is doing horrible damage to the children, to their families, whether it's SNAP and the food they eat, whether it's health care for their families. This is an economic issue too. The parks are an economic and jobs issue too. So this has a terrible effect on our country. Terrible effect on our country.
After detailing the devastating effects of the Republican shutdown, a reporter asked about the American workers who are being forced to go without pay while these negotiations drag on. These are the same federal employees who show up every day to keep our government running.
Americans, federal workers who are going to have to be going without pay while these negotiations play out.
Well, quite frankly, the message is from them. Is from them.
Yeah,
Isn't that right?
exactly.
Wait, do you want to speak to that?
Oh, no, we're hearing loud and clear from these federal workers who are traumatized. You know, when Russ Vought said he wanted federal employees to be traumatized when they go to work every day, what kind of creepy, cruel monster even thinks that way, let alone says it as the head of Office of Management and Budget? Well, it's working. I mean, these folks are traumatized, and many of them have already been let go. So we are hearing from them loud and clear to not normalize this, to not give in, to stand and fight. And it is really for them, in large part, that we are standing our ground and fighting right now.
And, because you asked that question, may I just say, we have such high regard for our federal workers, many of them in our area here, but across the country. They're there to do the work for the people. And they should deserve much more respect than this administration gives them when the Republicans have given them in the past. Whether we're talking about Social Security or our parks or health care, in every area of governance, our federal employees deserve to be exalted, not traumatized.